When I watched Alien 3 for the first time, I went in knowing all about the behind-the-scenes issues. It was a nightmare of the wrong type. Production hell, studio meddling, and strange creative choices led to a movie that was a disappointment for the fans of the first two, and also a disappointment at the box office.
All we got here is shit.
So I went in with tempered expectations, and yet I was still surprised at how bad it was. Why then am I making a video defending it? Well, the more I thought about it, the more I found that I liked, and as time's gone on and as I continued to watch Alien sequels, well, it could certainly be a lot worse, couldn't it?
Watch me. I'll do the fingering.
So stick with me as we desperately hack this movie apart to see what can be salvaged, like the survivor of a crashed ship with a xenomorph breathing down his neck. Let's punch it! Oh, before I forget, I wanted to set a slightly spookier tone for this video, so I asked my producer Wendy to get me some sort of alien model or toy that could loom over me while I'm recording. Wendy, what did you get? Huh, not exactly what I had in mind, but no, you're right, these things are fun. You pop them down and they spring back up. Right, so that's a fail on 2 counts, Wendy. If this were an Alien movie, you'd already be dead by now. Anyway, we'll start at the beginning because I feel like this is the most controversial choice this movie makes, and I understand why a lot of people hate it. At the end of Aliens, Ripley saves Newt and escapes with her, Hicks and Bishop. It's a feel-good ending to a great movie. Alien 3 decides to kill all of them but Ripley off-screen, completely destroying that legacy. It's a bold choice, and I can see why they did it. Alien 3 is a grungy, bleak movie, which is a perfectly reasonable choice in a franchise about unspeakably horrible creatures from deep space that go on killing sprees. And so starting off the movie in a way that enforces that tone and creates a feeling of helplessness makes sense. However, starting off by diminishing the ending of a beloved movie was always going to be an uphill battle with audiences. And while I think the movie does do an effective job of maintaining its tone, it struggles to make use of that tone to tell an interesting, satisfying story. And so people were bound to rally against the decision. It's a hard choice to defend, but I do give it points for bravery, partly because I appreciate a ballsy move, and partly because it just stands against whatever the hell Alien Covenant was.
And I also punched a police officer's horse in the mouth on St. Patrick's Day.
I really love the setup here. For an Alien movie, you need a location that's isolated with a lot of characters to get picked off. And a foundry/prison/monastery is a very cool location. It sets up themes of sacrifice that are paid off at the end of the movie, and it also provides a host of characters that are unlikable and that you can happily watch see picked off by the xenomorph. The characters here also don't have any weapons, so unlike the colonial marines in Aliens, here one xenomorph feels like a real threat again. Nobody here is a match for it. However, the rest of the story is fairly straightforward as the characters start getting killed off, and it feels like the prisoner religious element isn't utilised for any interesting scenes, and neither is the fact that the xenomorph won't kill Ripley. This movie consistently brings interesting ideas to the table, but then never executes them in a way that feels satisfying. Combine that with a story that often drives home how hopeless everything is, and you start to want it to be over. It's kind of ironic that what the story needed to do, considering its tone, was to hint at elements of hope in the darkness, and I don't think there's a better example of that than David Fincher's next movie, Seven. It's possible that if they'd given Fincher free rein to make the movie he really wanted to make, we would have got something much better, but honestly, based on the production, I think it just would have been too rushed. We were never getting anything that amazing. Okay, I'm a little disappointed with the lack of ambient dread in this video. Be right back. There's a hole over there. I'm going to stick my head into it, see if anything terrible happens. The hole just turned out to be a window. Somebody shouted at me to piss off, but it wasn't quite the disaster I was aiming for. This movie has an excellent cast. Charles Dance, Paul McCann, Charles Dutton, Holt McElhaney, Pete Postlethwaite. But it reinforces one of the main problems with the movie in that none of the characters get enough time to develop so that we care about them, and none of them are on screen enough for the actors to really shine. This is improved upon slightly in the assembly cut, which I'll talk about later, but honestly in either cut, there's nothing that interesting that makes any of these characters memorable. No intrigue with Ripley, no interesting moral standpoint that provides texture, no interesting fights with the xenomorph where they do something unexpected or smart in order to combat it. That said, the performances here are great, and while the writing isn't up to scratch, they elevate the movie substantially, especially compared to other movies in the series. Certain themes just pop because of the performances, unlike poorly produced toys. Hey, what are you doing? No, that thing stays where it is. It's gonna sit there this whole video as a testament to your failure. Get away from it, you bitch. I may have been waiting for an opportunity to say that when I could pretend it was just a movie reference. Ow. I already mentioned the production issues on this movie, a rush to a deadline and massive studio interference so that Fincher couldn't make the movie that he wanted to. Obviously, this does create the perfect environment for a director's cut, and one was produced. It was originally called the Assembly Cut and now is quite often referred to as the Special Edition. However, unlike other director's cuts, this one has two major problems. The first is that Fincher completely disowned this movie and refused to be involved, so the Assembly Cut is just the studio adding extra footage in and changing things around, based roughly on editing notes from Fincher that were left behind. The second is that, unlike some movies where the director makes the movie they want and then the studio hacks it up, in this case, Fincher was battling studio interference on a daily basis while filming, and constantly had to make changes based on notes from executives. This means that the footage to make Fincher's ideal version doesn't exist, and so the Assembly Cut is essentially an alternative version of a flawed movie. It fixes some things, like giving some more time to develop the characters and fixing a few plot holes, but then it makes some things worse. The extra material makes the pacing drag a bit, and some of the scenes around the capture of the xenomorph really reduce the tension. It makes it feel like this stupid beast that can be caught as opposed to an intelligent being that's hunting them. It's an interesting watch, and if you've only ever seen the theatrical cut, I'd recommend it if you do a rewatch, but I wouldn't consider it the definitive version. Still waiting for something dramatic and terrible to happen in this video to shake things up. I saw some black goo in the fridge earlier. I'll go eat it and see if anything bursts out of my chest. The black goo was blackcurrant jam. Delicious as it was disappointing. I've already mentioned how this movie nails the tone, and I think a lot of that is down to the excellent production design, but even more so, a brilliant score, which is why I'm giving MVP to composer Elliot Goldenthal. His work here really is superb, and like the performances I mentioned earlier, his work massively elevates the movie, even if it can't undo all of its flaws. I often see the xenomorph from this movie described as the scariest one from the franchise, and I think a lot of that comes down to the tone that's set here. This is a dreary, desolate location that no person would ever want to visit, and as the score hammers at home, we really feel empathy for the characters stuck here, doomed to be hunted by something terrifying and relentless. The score during Ripley's final scene is particularly noteworthy, and it really gives her sacrifice this epic feel. Goldenthal wasn't a composer I was aware of before Alien 3, but the dude's an Oscar winner for a reason. So, is Alien 3 really that bad? Well, it's undeniably a massive quality drop from the first two movies, so if you come in expecting something of that caliber, you're definitely going to be disappointed. However, there is a lot to like here, and while I can't understand some of the choices that were made along the way, I'm still happy this movie exists. If nothing else, it gave us that iconic shot of Ripley and the xenomorph. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider hitting the like button, it really helps the channel out, and feel free to leave me a comment and let me know what you think of Alien 3. Nobody enjoys it as much as the first two, but did it still work for you? Is it still scary? You know, saying that, as much as I enjoy the Alien franchise, I don't think I've ever found any of the movies scary as such, which is strange considering it's a horror franchise. I don't know, maybe I'm just one of those people that doesn't get scared easily.